Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we're going to be respraying these tired old alloy wheels. You can see from these ones that the area around the centre cap has had some really bad touch-ups done, and there's a lot of chipping, and the paint is generally kind of quite bubbly and it's quite dull overall. There's no kerbing in these wheels, so we'll not be using any filler. We'll just be going for a respray colour change to gunmetal grey. It's a complete DIY home job, but you'll see the results at the end are pretty good if I don't say so myself. So sit back, relax and enjoy, and we'll go through this process, which you can do at home. So here's some of the equipment we're going to be using. So we're going to start off with sanding the existing wheels, just using some sandpaper. I've got various grades of it, but it's just standard sandpaper. We've got some wet and dry stuff as well. Then we're going to move on to using these abrasive pads just to give it a good key so we can put the new paint on top of it. Of course, we're going to be using gloves and a spray paint mask. Before that, we're going to be cleaning the wheels properly just to get all the rubbish off them. And we're going to be using some gunmetal grey alloy wheel paint and lacquer. And to mask up the paint, we've got these cards which we're going to put around the edges of the wheels so it doesn't go into the tyres. And of course, a big packet of microfiber cloths to mop anything up. So just give them a quick wash, and we've sprayed them with the Meguiar's all-wheel cleaner, which if you leave it for a few minutes it turns purple like this, and it really gets the wheels really nice and clean. So we'll do that first a couple of times just to make sure there's no dirt that will run off them as we're sanding and spray painting. Look at that, lovely and purple. Okay, a disclaimer, I'm not a professional at this. This is going to be a complete home DIY job on these alloys, and when you see at the end of the video, I'm pretty happy with the finish on them. It's more than acceptable for me. I'd still turn up to a car show with these wheels, so I'm pretty impressed with the way they turned out at the end. But, you know, I'm not sanding them right down to the bare metal, we're not priming them. Luckily on these I don't have any bits to fill in with filler that have been curbed or anything like that, so it's relatively straightforward, and you can do this at home with the tools that I've shown you. So I'm just sanding down all the kind of rough bits of paint here, all the bits that have bubbled in the centre. You can see this bit around the centre cap there is pretty bad, and we're going in between all the spokes with the, I think this is 800 grit sandpaper that I'm starting off with.
One hour later.
Okay, a small coffee break later to let the hands take a rest, and we'll move on to the abrasive pads that I showed you earlier. So there's three grades of these: green being the coarsest, the kind of purple colour in the middle being a medium one, and the grey one is a finer coarse pad. So although the sandpaper is giving them a good key, I'll just go over them with these to just scuff up any bits that I may have missed and to give it a more even finish. And these pads are quite good because they kind of give it a wee clean as well as you're going around it, but these can get into all these smaller bits. These wheels are actually quite good because they're big and chunky. If you've got like multi-spoke alloys that get tiny wee bits in between them, in between the spokes, these are pretty handy. So these aren't as abrasive as sandpaper obviously, but they just give it a nice good key. So we'll go around the whole thing with these, and most of this is preparation work. If you prepare the wheels and take your time like I'm doing and sand them all down, it does take a good while. I would say a wheel's probably taken me about half an hour or so of sanding, and I could have bought a little orbital sander to do this, but I thought I'll just do these by hand just to show you that what's possible without any expensive tools. So I'm going to go through all four wheels like this with sandpaper, and then each of the one of the three abrasive pads, and then clean them with microfiber cloth at the end. Now I did go and get a quote to get these done professionally, and it was quotes that I got were anywhere in between £200 to £300 for all four wheels, and some charged more because I was asking for a colour change, so some were over £300. So I thought, you know, I'll get into the costs of what this cost me to do it like this. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll tell you and tally up how much everything costs me, and it's quite good. If you've got the space and the means to do it at home, you will save a packet of money which you can spend on other cool stuff for your car.
1 hour later.
Okay, now the tedious bit's out of the way. What I'm going to do now is, using some green frog tape, I'm going to mask up the valve stem and cap. You can easily forget this step, and all you're going to get is a gunmetal grey valve stem and cap at the end of it, but take the time, mask it up, just put a little bit of tape round the bottom and wrap it right round up to the top of the cap. That'll keep it nice and clean when we're spray painting. Okay, now we're going to mask up the edges of the wheels itself, so I'm going to use these little cards that I made. It's just cut out a thick gloss paper. I'm just going to place them overlapping all the way around the edges of the alloy, and if you're used to spray painting, this should be enough not to spray over the top. If you're not, you could mask the whole wheel up and tie her up with newspaper and frog tape, but this way for me is a lot quicker. And it's a lot easier, and it works really, really well. Okay, on to the fun bit. Now we're actually going to get to paint it. So I'm going to start off with the gunmetal grey paint and just give it a light dusting all the way around the wheel. I'm not going to stand there and hold the spray can button down for ages and completely shellac it with oodles of paint, so all you'll get is paint runs and big blobs everywhere. So I'm going to give these probably 3 or 4 coats of the gunmetal grey and lightly do the first one, let it dry for about 10 minutes or so. It's quite a warm day when I'm doing this, so it's not going to take long to dry in the garage, and just go over it so very, very lightly, and it will look dead patchy and it won't look as if it's changed colour much at all. By the time you come to do the second and third coats, it will start to look more finished. So just take your time with this, do some light sprays, keep moving the can around, don't hold it in one position for any length of time, and just make sure you get complete coverage over the 3 or 4 coats that you're going to do. Okay, it's maybe tough to tell from this camera angle, but they're starting to look really dark grey now. So now it's time for the lacquer. I'm going to give them 2 to 3 coats of lacquer on top of the gunmetal grey paint. I've let this dry now, so that the wheels have been sitting for a good couple of hours, just drying. You'll see the lacquer going on there and giving it a shine. And this will really bring up the wheels. You can leave it matte if you want, just leave it with the paint on top, but I just like to have the lacquer there just to give it a nice glossy finish. So a couple of coats of this, same technique as before, just spraying it on lightly to start with, and make sure I'm covering all the areas, all the bits in between the spokes and where the lug nuts go. Okay, that's 3 coats of lacquer on this one wheel, and I've probably used just shy of a full can of the grey paint and probably about half a can of the lacquer. So 3 cans of the grey paint and 1 or 2 cans of lacquer should be enough to do all 4 wheels. Here's a quick before shot. See all the bad touch-ups there, all the scuffing where someone's tried to yank out the lug nuts at some point. And here's an after shot. Yes, much better. I did dress the wheels up with some nice chrome lug nut caps as well, so I think that really suits the car, and I think the gunmetal grey just makes it that bit more up to date looking. So I'm really, really happy with that finish. Cost wise, I got 3 cans of paint and a can of lacquer off eBay for £20. I did buy a second can of lacquer, but I didn't need it. The scuff pads were around £9, so that's 29. The Meguiar's all wheel cleaner was about £11, so that's up at £40. And the cloths and sandpaper etc were about a fiver, so that's £45. Plus you need to buy a mask if you don't have one, and I used gloves as well, so let's call that another, what, £10–15, so let's say about £60 approximately altogether if you don't have any of the kit already to do your own wheels at home, which is well worth the effort, plus your time. Took me about a day altogether, give or take. But look at this finish, it's really good, I'm really impressed with it and I'm really happy with it. If I'd paid someone to do that professionally, I'd be happy with them turning back up to my house looking like that. So I think it's well worth the effort, particularly if you're just wanting to improve your car or you're putting it up for sale like I am. So drop a like if this video has been useful to you, share it with your family and friends, and please don't forget to subscribe and comment below, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.